Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
When I think about ingratitude and entitlement, what I do automatically is I go back to what research and ancient wisdom tell us about the importance of gratitude. This is a virtue. This is a characteristic of more refined, more elevated people.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hi.
Hey, you seem like you're in a great mood today. I love Mondays.
Happy Monday.
You weren't in a great mood the other day when one of the kids got cranky at you because you didn't know where her music book was. What is it with that?
Clearly, I moved it just to make your life hard.
That's right. Sometimes we wake up and we think that the kids decided that they were going to make our lives hell, but sometimes I think that they wake up thinking we are really doing our best to ruin their lives. I don't get it. The kids, they'll turn around and they'll be like, do you know where my shoes are? Or do you know where my lunchbox is? Or do you know where my school bag is? Or do you know where my swimming stuff is? And I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, whose stuff is it? Do I ever ask you where my stuff is? And they look at me like I'm from another planet.
Well, you do ask me a lot where your sunglasses are or your wallet is, but that's another story.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. By the way, I'm Justin. I'm here with Kylie, my wife. We're the parents of 6 kids. I've written a bunch of books about raising happy families and I run a website called happyfamilies.com.au. Today we're talking about entitled kids. How do you know if you're raising one? What can you do to make sure that you don't raise one? And what's the problem with being entitled anyway?
It is a problem.
You sound really confident about that. What's the problem with raising entitled kids? Kids that think that they deserve everything and that everyone should do stuff for them. Is that a real problem?
It's a huge problem. It's really, really hard when, as a parent, every waking moment is spent thinking about how to make your children's lives as comfortable as possible. You want to make sure that they've got clothes to wear and they've got food on the table and that they can get to, the music lessons or the swimming lessons or whatever else it is that they're doing. And sometimes our kids just expect that everything is going to be done for them, that they're not responsible for any of it. Like, where's my music books? Or where's my flippers? Or I don't use them. But why am I responsible for all of that, as well as ensuring that you get from A to B because you're 10 and you can't get there on your own? Do I have to look after your flippers as well?
When I think about ingratitude and entitlement, what I do automatically is I go back to what research and ancient wisdom tell us about the importance of gratitude. This is a virtue. This is a characteristic of what I would call more refined, more elevated people over the centuries. And there's this acknowledgement that a person who takes everything for granted and has high expectations, they actually don't fit in well in society. It's almost like it's an unspoken reality that gratitude is simply, it's important not only because it helps us to feel good, but it inspires us to do good. And when we come across ingratitude, it makes us feel like we're taken for granted, like we're unimportant, like we're just an object, we're a slave in that person's life. And that's the big drama when it comes to entitlement. Our children, it's important, we as a society, we value people valuing contribution. So I thought it'd be really interesting to talk about a handful of ways that you can tell if your kids are entitled.
Some red flags.
Some red flags, yeah. Yeah, so I was going through the list of different things that we could throw in there, and the first one that I thought was just the expectation that someone else is going to do it for me.
Like, where are my flippers?
Yeah. I'm just astounded at how often the kids say to me, where's this? And I'm like, or why haven't, every now and again, one of the kids will say to us, why haven't you done that for me? I'm like, where is it in my job description that that's my job? Now, let's be clear. If you're 2, I think that it's reasonable that you would have an expectation that someone else is going to do it all for you. And even if you're 4 or 5 or 7, there are many things that you still kind of need a lot of help with. So developmentally, it's important that we recognize that children do need us to do stuff. But that's the first red flag. The older they get, the more they expect. A little bit of a concern.
I think another red flag is definitely when we don't involve our kids in chores or duties around the house. They just expect that the washing's going to end up on their bed, clean, folded and ironed. Yeah,
I keep on talking over you because I'm so passionate about what you've just said. But it's not about us not involving them. It's about them refusing. Just, again, it's that expectation. Someone else can do it. And hang on, you want me to weed? I don't weed. Have you seen my nails? I don't get my hands dirty like that. It's that kind of thing. So not having chores, totally expecting someone else to do it. There were a couple of other things that I thought of, and you've probably got them on your list as well. So a third sign that you're raising an entitled child is when you tell them no and they just can't take it. But why not? But why not?
I think that's every child.
Well, it is. And I guess this is where the developmental thing comes in. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to be hardcore and no means no, and that's all there is to it. I don't want to sort of drive that hard, authoritarian, suck it up princess kind of approach. That's not where I'm going. But just that thing, like sometimes kids look at you and they're like, what do you mean no? You can't say no to me. I'm 12. I deserve better than this.
Another one for me would just be they're bad losers. They really struggle to lose at a game or to not be the head poncho.
Honcho. No one wants to be the head poncho. If you're going to be a poncho, you want to be the full body poncho, not just the head poncho. So we don't want kids to be bad losers. We don't want them to be unable to take no for an answer. And we don't want them to be expecting that someone else is going to do it all for them, to never have to lift a finger, not do any chores or duties. Now, it would be kind of obvious to say, well, if you don't want to raise entitled kids, just don't let any of that happen. But I think there's more to it. We need to kind of unpack how we can make sure that our kids aren't being entitled, because it is a really unattractive way to be. No one likes an entitled adult. There is a name for them. It's such an unfortunate name to call somebody a Karen, but it's that whole entitled Karen attitude. I hate saying that because I know a couple of wonderful Karens. My mum is a Karen and she's one of the most terrific people in the world. Mind you, sometimes she can be a bit of a Karen, let's face it. Sorry, mum. But let's talk about how we can make sure that we don't raise Karens and Kevins, that we don't raise those entitled kids who don't take no for an answer, who are bad losers, who expect everything to be done for them and don't ever want to do a chore or a duty, right after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
For a happier family, try a Happy Families membership, because a happy family doesn't just happen. Details at happyfamilies.com.au.
It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now. And today we've been talking about some red flags that would kind of help us recognise whether or not we are raising an entitled child. I think we have a few in our house. No.
Our kids are not entitled. They're perfect. They're absolutely fabulous. I was just thinking about what you said. So every day we say this. It's the Happy Families Podcast, the podcast for the time poor parent who just wants answers now. Does that strike you as being a bit entitled? I'm just saying.
Give them to me.
Give me the answer now. I'm entitled to it. I deserve it. I want it, and I want it for free, and I want it now, and I want it on a plate, and I want a take-home message as well. I'm just kidding, of course.
You know what?
What?
I think it'd be great if we gave them some answers.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. My first answer is we have to be a model of gratitude ourselves. If we act entitled, if we act like we expect the children to be our slaves, if we act as though we are entitled when we walk into a store and make demands and say, but I expect more, or we're at the restaurant and we say, I can't believe that you didn't give me enough ice cream in my 30-cent Yuck ice cream cone. I deserve more ice cream in my cone than that. If we have that entitlement in the way we behave with others, whether it's our children or people outside of our family, we shouldn't be surprised that our children also feel entitled. We've known people, we've been in restaurants with people. From time to time, we've been that person who walks up to that poor staff member and says, really unhappy with this, not good enough. I'm paying good money and I expect better. Now, it is true that there should be a certain level of service when you're paying for something. I get that. But there's a sense of entitlement that sometimes goes along with that that's unhealthy. We've got to be a model. That's my first suggestion. What about you?
I think it's important that children have responsibilities. In any home, it requires a team effort to help the home function, to help the family function. And regardless of their age, there are age-appropriate things that each of our children could be doing that would help the team. You know, our family's a team, and they help the family, help the team to actually be able to function efficiently, effectively, and we work together.
That's the key. In fact, I've got that written down. That was going to be the next thing that I said to sort of extend on your idea. When children are young, and even when they're older and capable of doing things on their own, working together, letting everybody know that we all participate, that we're all in. And making sure that we go through an induction process to help the children learn how to do stuff, that's how you minimize entitlement. We're all in this together. We're all working on this. We're figuring it out. We're going to all contribute to the household. That's how you make sure you don't raise entitled kids.
Do you have anything else for us?
Yeah, I want to really go back to that idea of, I said that you're at risk of raising an entitled child if they can't take no for an answer. But I think that I just need to pause on that for a moment, maybe double click and go a little bit deeper. I don't know that it's helpful for us to say, I've told you no, and if you don't accept my no, that you're entitled. I kind of think we need to soften that just a little bit and be gentle around that. Children have strong desires, and they often don't know how to manage and regulate their emotions and their behaviours when they get refusal on that thing that matters to them. So I just want to emphasise, if we say no, it's really helpful to say, I wish that you could, but here are some reasons that I have to say no today. Provide a little bit of a rationale, a bit of an explanation. Wouldn't it be great if we could go to the park? Wouldn't it be awesome if you could have your friends over for a sleepover? Unfortunately, this weekend we've got this going on. What can we do about maybe making it happen later? So a hard no doesn't have to be a hard no.
Well, I think that's where we run into trouble, when we just say no and we don't give our children an opportunity to understand why we're saying no.
Yeah. Yeah. I reckon the other thing that I would say to make sure that we don't raise entitled kids is to minimise competition. We were talking about bad losers. When we reduce competition and we focus more on collaboration, kids are less likely to lose badly because they're not losing anything, because they're collaborating, not competing. And I know that we live in a competitive world, but competition isn't good for kids. There's enough research around to say that we need to let our kids grow up and figure out life a bit before we start making them dive into mutually exclusive situations where winning or losing are the only likely outcomes. Reducing competition means that kids aren't going to feel entitled to come out as top dog, because there is no top dog when you're not in a competition.
So the main take-homes from today are: give our children responsibilities, make sure that they're age appropriate,
and work with them, especially if we want it to be successful and they're tired or they're hungry or it's just too big. Work with them.
Perfect. And then when we say no, give them an explanation, help them to understand, work through that process with them.
Yeah, and just be a good example. Don't be entitled. Sit around the table at the end of the day and say, what were you grateful for today? What's awesome in your life? What have you got to really appreciate? What's great right now about the lives we live? Because we live great lives. We have so much to be appreciative of, and it helps to overcome the scourge of entitlement. Hey, we really hope that you've enjoyed our conversation today about entitled kids. The podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer, and we'd love for you to tell other people about the podcast, either by sending them a link and saying, hey, listen to this, it was great, or just jump onto Apple Podcasts and leave 5-star ratings and reviews so that others can find out about the podcast and make their family happier. As always, if you'd like more info about making your family happier, you can find it at happyfamilies.com.au.